How are we supposed to be behaving in courtship once you just decided that you're now courting someone?
Your question is very direct, but like in my definition, courting is towards mating in the animal kingdom. For human beings, courtship is towards marriage. So courtship is different from dating. Dating, any gun can shoot. There are no commitments. But now you are very deliberate. So your question, I'll try and answer it in two ways. The first aspect that young people need to understand, the first aspect is you are deliberate in the way you behave because you are not doing it blindly. So if there is anyone who's in courtship and they don't know why they are there, it's a disaster. You court to marry. So it's not, there are not two ways around it. You court to marry. Yes. So, in other words, the failure or success of courtship is whether what you find in the process is geared towards marrying or not marrying, right? Is there a certain behavior? It's an interesting part, and I'll tell you why. Whether there is a behavior you expose yourself as, and or you don't expose yourself as, you are still attracting someone to mate with or to marry. So you have to be deliberate. So the question in courtship, it's twofold. It's like a double-edged sword. Are you the right person? And at the same time you are looking for the right person?
Okay, so you say that you'll be looking self-introspection. Are you the right person for the next person? So my question is, how long can one court? Is there a period where one has to go through so that they know, okay, this is now the time for me to settle down with this person, or now I'm decided to settle down with this person? Are there any obligation, time factors that we should put in so that you can be sure you're now ready to get married?
When a young person like yourself asks an old gun like me, it becomes difficult because I'm looking backwards. But to be fair, there is no set time. But this is the most irresponsible statement I'll say this evening, to say that there is no set time. Because once I say that, there are certain guidelines, or there are certain, it sticks to certain people who want to rush things. At the same time, there are no shortcuts. What I know, what I can certainly tell you, there is never too long a period in courtship. That I can lay out there. So I'm laying out to the mathematicians amongst us. That is a constant. If it takes 10 years, it's not a problem. But there is a likely problem. And I know, and I can judge from my audience here, ladies are very uncomfortable with that. Unlike us as men, we don't see anything wrong because we are long term. Ladies, you see, I think you saw them, they are laughing to say, when I say 10 years, and they'll be like, doing what? Ndakango mirira or whatever. But the truth of the matter is, on the longitude of time, there's no guidance. But it's this part that is worrying for me, because I'll give you an example, and I want you to hear me very clearly. Number one, we have young people who are 35 years of age, right? Those people, and they are in our audience, I can tell, those people, the experience they have, the mental maturity that they have, maybe in terms of economic status, economic independence and whatever, the checklists that they have, they can go through them quickly. They now know, they are so mature that they can see a person and in 3 months they can judge their character. This is a good guy, this is not a good guy. Because they are 35 years of age. That is the context of my answer. To say we don't have a time frame. Right? To an 18-year-old, there is nothing wrong going out with someone for the next 10 years. Right? However, may I also issue a disclaimer? What are you doing at 18 years? So it's a mixture of dating and courting at the same time. So when you know someone is an 18-year-old, it should be in the dating phase, which graduates into courting and eventually marriage. So you have people who started knowing each other as A-levels, as 18-year-olds at Anderson, at Nyazura, at whatever high school they were at, push time, they go to university and whatever. They get married at 28. That's a good age to be married at. But they knew each other for 10 years. Is it too long? No, it's not. Because of the age factor. So a 35-year-old makes a decision faster than an 18-year-old. That was the context of my answer to say we don't have set times, right? It was not like a blanket term, you see. So there are people who I know who are 40 years old and they're still not married. And that kind of experience. The second example I would like to give is that you know someone, you went to school together from grade 1, and you grew up together, nothing was happening, you know, you were so familiar, attended city center together, did Pathfinders together, one goes to Canada, one goes to Australia, you come back, you meet during holidays and whatever, and all of a sudden, there is the chemistry that is brewing between the two of you. The decision or the courtship period might not necessarily be as long as someone you just met on a bus who comes from Mutoko and you come from Cholocho. Those are dynamics. Do you understand what I mean? You need to know what Cholocho is all about. She needs to know what Mutoko is all about. You need to understand your cultures. There's a lot of bridges to be learned and gone over before you make a commitment to say, this person, I can marry them. So these are the contexts that I'm trying to bring in. But there's disaster. For a Mutoko boy to meet a Cholocho girl, in 2 weeks or 3 months, they know each other and boom, they're getting married. There's a danger there. But someone you grew up with, you even know even their parents know you. You know, the parents know each other. You know, in that familiarity, you then said, by the way, there's the positive and the negative are making things happen. Let's get on with it. Those people are likely to come up with a decision faster than those who just came from the blues and they're trying to make things. So that is the context. I know it was a mouthful, but that is the context of why time does not really matter unless you put it in your context. But as an old schooler myself, it's important to give it time. So if you are below 25, look, I think 3 years minimum is a good number. Yeah, minimum if you're very fast.
Okay, let me interject on that one. We do have people who are dating, who have been dating for the past 10 years, and they're above 25. They're above 28, they're above 30. They've been dating. All of them, they are stable. They have got, life is in good shape, and everything is going well for them. So what might be the reason for one delaying to settle? I mean, everybody knows them. From Pathfinders, they know that these people are dating, but they are not married.
Okay. There's no greater sign of confusion than to be dating for 10 years. In terms of when you use the word dating, because dating has got no objective. You understand what I mean? So if someone is with someone and they're above 25 or whatever age, we are abusing 25, please forgive us. But if 25 is our magic number today, and you are dating, you are using the word date at 25, look, I think there's a problem. If it is genuine dating, maybe it shouldn't stretch over a year or whatever, but I'm saying courtship is about meeting, mingling with an objective to marry or to mate. Okay. So there has to come a point in time where people graduate. But when you say they've been dating for 10 years, I don't think it even qualifies in the scientific definition of dating. So it has to be, I don't know what you call that. Maybe that's what they call Mjolo, I don't know. But it's something, it's a pandemic, very good. That's why I say there's something wrong, it's a disease. Okay. And thank you, allow me to digress on that. There has to come a point in time, young people, you need to ask each other to say, what are we doing? What are we doing? It's a discussion that has to be had at some point in time. Look, we've known each other since we were 18, now we're 26. What are we doing? Yeah, it's not a crime. It's not like someone wants to walk away. But you need to understand, because I know for sure people who have been dating like that, the next thing, a call comes from the person you were dating and say, please, can you carry kids at my wedding? Yeah, from the same guy. Why? Because you never, and I think ladies, I'm giving you a warning to say you are very gullible and you have a tendency to assume without communicating, without verbalizing what is going on. I thought we were tight. I thought this was going somewhere. Don't thought, right? Don't thought.
Okay.
Make sure that whatever is going on is defined. Yes. I'm sorry to abuse this again. Be a chihera, be straightforward. We are meeting at Chicken Inn. We've been doing this for the past 3 years. Where are we going on with this? Are we together? Yes, where are we going on with this? Okay, we are going to marry each other. There's hope. So that's fine. But don't just do things blindly and use hope and thoughting, right? Right, to say, I thought. Let's be very clear what it is that we are doing together. It's very important. So if you have not done that, after today, before you sleep, I see you have cell phones. Let's make sure you WhatsApp your other person and say, what's going on? The elder said I should use my name today.
Okay. That's quite insightful. So I would like to ask, on a personal point of view, how did you court? I think this question is too personal. I'm asking you so that you can tell us, because you're married.
Yes.
So I think you went through the same process that we are going through.
Okay. It's a difficult question to answer forthright, but we come from an era where people would know each other over a long period of time. I met my current wife at college, and we had a student association, right? Those who went to college, into public campuses or public colleges where non-Adventist ones, there was what do you call it, an association, an Adventist association. We met each other there. I left college, she continued. So I think we were together, like we were courting for a good, because this is live, I'm afraid that if I get it wrong, but it must be 7 years. Is it 7 years?
Okay.
Yeah, 7 years.
7.
Yeah, 7 years.
Okay.
Before finally getting married.
Before finally getting married.
Yes.
Okay, so in the 7 years, what were you looking for, like in that woman? I mean, you know everything about her.
Uh-huh.
So were you not prepared, or was there something that you were doing before you settled?
Thank you. That's a very good question. I want you to ask it again so that our audience understand that question. Can you ask it again?
Okay, I said, in those 7 years,
Uh-huh.
I believe maybe in a year or so you know a person. So what were you doing in that period so that you then decide, okay, let me get married in the 7th year? So
Okay.
yeah, that's my question.
Now, I hope you understood his question. He's asking why we courted for 7 years, or why we dated and then courted. Now, this is the context of your first question on time frames. It was, if it were up to me, maybe I could have married her the week I saw her.
Okay. That's
Do you
interesting.
understand? Yeah,
I get it.
I could have done that. But if I were to use Shona, zvikwanisiro zvanga zvisipo. That was the only problem. So like I told you, so follow my journey. I'm a 4th year student. She was a 1st year student.
Okay.
Do you understand?
I get it.
Yeah, you get it. And she came on campus that very week. There was chemistry. Are we together? But I'm a 4th year student.
All right.
So what explains the 7 years for me and for my other fellow comrades out there who are now married, they know themselves. It's not an issue of us wanting to push time. Okay. It's because the necessary resources are not yet there.
Okay.
So it's like place holding. I now have my person. So it's a checklist. It's a long checklist. So person to put on the wedding invitation, check. She was there, right? But lobola money, cross. Job, cross. Accommodation, if ever, obviously it was going to be needed, of my own, cross, mother's house. So you understand what I'm talking about? So that explains the courtship process. And this is also, I was going to say this, but I'll still say it out of context, and you have not answered. One of the things that has really messed us up is the European culture on us.
Yeah.
I need us to be very clear on this thing. And I see you and myself, and I think all of our guys here, we struggle to break dating and courtship.
Yes.
Because if you ask me, the way they are done in our African context, it's very different. Even I think in the Jewish context and how the Europeans do it. So for us, even from day one, no matter how young you are or old you are, you usually get in a relationship for the sake of marriage. And these periods are not as defined as the popular literature that surrounds us. I must hasten to say that. So one of the dangers we have, we need to be very careful, is to take a culture that is not ours and make it ours. It's something that I need to highlight.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I think we do have got a lot of homework to do right now, to go back and look into the culture, what our forefathers and guys like you have done to, I mean, during the process of dating and courtship.
Yeah.
So did you guys date, or what?
No,
Did you just enter into?
That's why I'm saying, in the African context. So my area is youth ministries, right? And let me give you something that disturbs me, and I'll say it publicly. So in the Explorer, grade 7, Pathfinder curriculum, we have to teach them dating. But I want all of us to close our eyes who are here and think about your very African mother and father and you talking about dating at the tender and damageable age of 17, of 13, that is grade 7, 12, 13, thereabout. It's unheard of, I want you to understand what I'm trying to talk about. So the curriculum within our own context, right, wants us to start talking about these things. And for your information, I don't know if I'm on spot or what, or I might be criticized for this. Our children as young as grade 2, grade 3 are being taught in their curriculum about these things. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a sociologist. I don't know what the impact of sex education is on our children. There might be positives, but there might be negatives as well. That you are teaching something that they didn't even know. So let me rewind a bit, not my era. Our grandmothers tell us that they will used to swim together, boys and girls, at the very ripe age of 18.
Now you can't.
Yes. Go and do this research that I'm talking to you about. 18-year-olds back then used to swim together, meaning that they did not even understand. They did not have an appreciation of what the organs they were carrying performed. Do you understand what I mean? They were very kind of innocent at that stage. Maybe 18, I've exaggerated a bit, but it's way past what we do these days. Are we together? When you go to any sociology, psychology, medical journal, it will tell you what has happened at the age, what they call the sexual debut age, right? So maybe in the 1700s, in the 1600s, the debut age was around 21 years, right? But then came this whole emancipation, empowerment of a certain gender and things like that. And the sexual debut age has been consistently going down. I think as I'm talking to you right now, it's around 12, 13 years. 12, 13, are we together? And we are being conservative. When you talk to your 9-year-olds, they will tell you stuff that is quite astonishing. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
I get it.
So what I'm saying is the context of how even us as Africans have taken a culture that is not ours and have gone and we're kind of confused by what is courtship, what are you supposed to do, what are the other things that are in there. And we had our own way of doing things. Then let me be naughty here and tell you something that I've said always, that even in our culture and in the Bible especially, I'm getting controversial now. You never read a verse which says, and Isaac loved Rebekah and they courted and they got married. Do you understand?
Yeah, we just said guys, they just met and they got married.
Love comes after. And if you tell these young people, they don't believe you. You know, my heart melts for him. He's got a six-pack, you know. But I'll tell you this. It's misleading. It seems misleading, let me say that. But these are the facts of life. We don't marry for love. Exactly. I hear people. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Okay, I get it.
Now, let me give you an example.
Right.
I'm not saying, even Ellen White, I was in Adventist home. It's a sin to marry someone you don't love. So I want you to hear me correctly. What I'm trying to say is, love is not at the top of this arrangement called marriage. Okay. So when you are courting, there are certain things that supersede your feelings. Okay. Do you understand? And this is a message we need to understand. That's why, even in our African culture, you hit a certain age and say, by the way, before you were born, we took 7 kettles that side so that you could be married there. Or whatever arrangement that was there. So, case in point number 1. A certain woman has died. The husband called Abraham is now left as a widower. He calls his servant and say, I want you to go to my people. Not the people around. I'm now getting into the Bible. Not the people where? Around. And go and look for a wife for my son who is my heir. Among my own what? People. Because these people will not take the heart of my son after other gods. Are we together?
I get it.
This is the supreme reason why we get married. I expect this silence. It's never about love as a defining, all-conquering force, whatever viewpoint we have about it. There are certain things that should be in place. Love, for me, it could be a distant second or third. But as one writer then says, as you are courting, the question is, will this partner help me heavenward? So, if this partner will help you heavenward, and it so happens that they are yellow born, hallelujah.
Take them.
Take them. If this partner will take you heavenward, and it so happens he drives a BMW 3 Series, hallelujah. Take them. If this partner will take you heavenward, and they are very voluptuous, hallelujah, take them. Not the other way around. To say they have a BMW, probably they'll take me to heaven. So when you look at Abraham, case study number 1. Let's go to case study number 2 in case that was a mistake. The same guy now is old. He can't see. A blunder has been made. Someone has stolen something from the other son. And the son who is left, Esau is already married to the Canaanite what? Women around. What does Isaac and what's her name now? Rebecca. They say, send Jacob where? To my people. Are we together, youth? Yes. Send them to where? To my people. To look for a wife. Not a wife that pleases his heart. Not a wife who's good looking. Not a wife who's got a career. Not a husband, no. A wife from among our people who have the same reverence for God. Who have an understanding of what we believe in. Who understand the basic reason that we are sojourners in this life. And as we go through our pilgrimage, they have a clear understanding of what life is about on this side of heaven. And Jacob is sent there to Mary. Not knowing who they would meet, but they knew that as long as they are in the parameters of the people of that vicinity, they were home and dry because these were the people who they were supposed to marry. So the governing thing, ladies and gentlemen, is not what we feel, is not the other externalities. It's the key fundamental that, am I going to make it better? Is it going to be easier for me to go heavenward bound? If we are not doing that and we are Adventist youths, we are wasting our time. And we should not speak about I love him or not. It's always about.
About do they carry you to heaven?
Yes.
Okay.
However, having said that, before you come in, I am not neglecting the softer issues. I am packaging them correctly. Are we together?
All right.
So some of you will meet a good guy. Some of you will meet a very powerful woman and say, the aesthetics of that woman will not appeal to my friends or to my, but those things should come. The attractiveness is important. The beauty is important. But I'm saying if beauty is found in this pond that we have demarcated for ourselves, glory be to God. Right? So I want it to be very clear. But when you read your Bible correctly, we are told when Rebecca comes off the horse or whatever that Elias had brought her, says Isaac saw her and loved her. But at that point, do we all agree? Rebecca is whose wife? Rebecca is whose wife? It's Isaac's wife. And the love is coming after. Lobola has been what? Paid. But the concept, the principle that was driving that. So I'm not saying let's follow blindly through that biblical example, but what I'm trying to say is that there is a proper hierarchy of what matters.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you've heard from the elder himself. He said that marriage is not about love. It's about a person to take you to heaven. So you need to get a person who will take you to heaven. That's the number one priority. So I think as Adventists, that is what we need to look at when we're looking for someone or courting someone to marry later on. And I hope you've got many questions. I can see hands in the hearts and in the heads.
Can I quickly read this?
Okay.
From the book, it must be Adventist Home. The topic is choosing a life partner. Choosing the life partner, yeah. So I actually highlighted, it says, we are not to please ourselves. Amen. For Christ pleased not himself. Let me continue reading that. I would not be understood to mean that anyone is to marry one whom he does not love. And that's what I'm saying as well. This would be a sin, right? To marry someone you don't love, to be a sin. However, you're not to please yourself. But fancy and emotional nature must not be allowed to lead on to ruin. God requires the whole heart and the supreme affections. So maybe before we have hands, the moment you are like me and you are married, and by the way, when you get married, you are as blank as possible. Certain things come up and you realize, wow, this is how lucky I am. Or I made a good decision. Or yeah, I'm in a fix. Right? I'm speaking as a proper married man. And some of the things that happen is that, I'll give you a good example. You have a mother. You have a father. You have siblings. You have your own friends. And it's decisions like that, how this person will fit in. Right? And not only that, over and above that, there are life circumstances that will happen. Are we together? That we can rehearse right now, and we will not cover all of them, and we will never finish them. But life just happens, right? And I'll give an example of myself, since we have a person. I got retrenched at one point in time, and I realized how lucky I was. Because I know people have been retrenched, and their wives have what? Have left them or cheated on them to make ends meet. So it's when life happens like that, you are retrenched, and you are at your worst. I remember one of the incidents is I'm in a shop. I had a young baby then. I'm trying to swipe for Pampers. It says insufficient balance, and that was the only money I had. And I can tell you for sure that a normal woman, a woman who's not God-given, was supposed to pack her bags and go and come back when things are settled. But it didn't happen. So all I'm saying is that, so when you talk about fancy and your emotional sway when you're making a decision at that point in time, it's very important to understand that there are even things that you don't know. That's why Ellen White then says, if you have been praying once a day, that time pray how many times? 3 times a day, right? And not only that, one of the mistakes that I want you not to make, be very deliberate. What do I mean? Bring your most annoying cousin to a date or to whatever. See how he reacts. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Because that will be the story of your life. So be very deliberate in ticking the boxes that you think are critical to you. If your mother is the only thing you have and you don't want, and it's not negotiable, test him or her around those aspects. Okay. If your Sabbath, I'm hoping that you will not do that to date a non-Adventist, but if your Sabbath is non-negotiable and whatever, test clearly along those issues. That will make sense to you. But don't say, look, yeah, maybe she'll change. One thing you notice when you cross the fence now, like where we are, is that they'll teach you that your spouse is not your child. Okay. Yes, no, your spouse is not. You cannot tell your spouse not to wear a miniskirt. That's not your duty. You cannot tell your spouse that they cannot put makeup. That's why I know you are young and you've seen it around. If you really look through, that's why you find some of our wives as elders, they do what they want. And you say, she's an elder's wife, she's a head deacon's wife and whatever. It's because you can't change a person. That's what I'm trying to emphasize. Pastors' wives even. He is the pastor, not the wife. And you say, is that a pastor's wife? Yes, it's a pastor's wife. Because once they get married, I can tell my daughter to go and redress or wear a decent dress. But my wife, it's another ball game altogether. Okay. She's her own person. Yeah. And these are things that are supposed to be made and corrected if need be this other side. Okay. Yeah. Right. So what I'm trying to say is, young people, be very deliberate. Ask those particular questions. So, we get married. What happens to money? No, you should give me all the money. Even the money I've worked, yes. Okay. So you don't get in there and start getting surprises, which is one of the mistakes that we make because, unfortunately, I'll say this also, we are doing the wrong things in courtship. So we are doing in courtship things we're supposed to do in marriage. So the things we did not attend to in courtship will come in marriage. They switch. So we're having sex when we're in courtship and not knowing each other. So when we get married, now we need to know each other. And no sex. Thank you very much. You understand what I'm saying? So we need to do the things that pertain to that particular stage when it matters. You should not be surprised that your wife can't cook when you get married. What were you doing? Elder Rukweza was dating for 7 years. What were we doing that I'm now surprised that she can't cook? Okay. So it's a serious warning to say, let's not swap things. Courtship is not for sleeping, because you can't jump stages in life, unfortunately. That's why you find that there are certain boys who are 60 years old, who still have gold chains, and they do whatever funny stuff. It's because they jumped the stage. So life is very organized, and I want to encourage you, do things that pertain to a certain stage, and you will enjoy what comes.
Okay, thank you so much. That was very clear. I think we are now taking questions from the floor. So today my mic is a cordless one, so I'm going to be, if you have a question, just raise your hand, and I'll come to where you are, and then you will say out your question. All right. So do we have any questions? I saw you were raising your hand. Okay, let me come aside.
Thank you for the presentation. My question is on the cultural part. There's a part where you were talking about how Isaac just met Rebecca without them first going through courtship, right? And I'm trying to compare it with what we are currently going through at the moment, where we are saying that we need first to get to know the person, and you find that even after the whole process of getting to know each other, we still have problems. But these guys who never had a period of courting, their relationships, their marriages were more stable compared to what we are seeing at the moment. What might have been the solution? What might have been the thing which they were doing that differentiate them from our current marriages? That's my question.
Okay. That's maybe you could take her as well. She has got a question. Then I try and combine.
Okay, mine is kind of different. You once mentioned about having the talk or having a serious conversation, but from what I've seen in other people's relationship, in most instances, some men generally don't like that kind of a serious talk. So how best can you handle it in a way that you don't seem, I don't know if I should say too emotional or something, because generally it's something that you would want to talk about, but the person is like, every time you bring it up, they're like, I don't want to talk about it. How do you address it?
Thank you.
I think there's another question here.
This is going to be a very weird, unpopular question, but what about if, like you said, this person has ticked all the boxes, but they are not SDA specifically, but they are somehow Christian? What do you do in such a situation? Or hypothetically speaking, if your wife was not SDA, but everything else was fine, and you can tell, she does have some bit of a Christian background, would you still marry her? And what kind of guidance would you give us on, dating people like that?
Okay, right. Let me start with I think in that order. Yours is a very difficult question. Now, globalization has had its evils. Technology has had its evils. And by this, to start off with, we have a seriously wrong conception of what marriage is. And the people of yesteryear had an understanding of what marriage was all about. So, you and I have been exposed, more so yourselves, to Telemundo, right? We've been exposed to a lot of soapies that appeal on the emotional state of who we are. And that has created false impressions and realities in our minds. So when we look at what a happy couple is all about, it's spontaneous. It's got this fuzzy, warm feeling. It happens naturally. It whatever. But marriage is a lot of work. And the work is not shown on Telemundo. Are we together? Ahead. And number two, that is acting. And my wife has got an expectation that her marriage is like on Telemundo. I've got an expectation of the same. Your girlfriend and everyone else, when they look, that's why you even find how we do. I'm not against it. I'm not saying anything about it, but I just want you to understand the pressure we now have. Rora squad. Then you have the wedding. Then do you understand what's happening? We are importing bits and pieces of what was not there. There's nothing wrong with that. But all I'm just trying to say is that it's modern, yes. But there are things that are coming on. So you realize the lobola ceremony itself nowadays, it's a wedding on itself. You need to have plates, you need to have that, you need to have that, you need to have that. And then you have the wedding itself. even the way the weddings are being conducted, they are infused with it's a hybrid of cultures, and unfortunately, less of us as Africans is coming in. Are we together? So we have expectations, and you even realize that even some of the, I'm sorry to say this, but the boy child is under a lot of pressure.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true.
The boy child is under a lot of pressure because of where society is going and what we are now bringing into the whatever. Your point to say, how does Rebecca and Isaac meet each other and they click? How does Jacob and Rachel get into a space and they click and whatever? I don't know what was happening with them. They had their own fair of problems, but I think there was a central point that drew them together. And that point was what had been handed from generation to generation. You are going to be the father of many nations. So this woman is coming for mission to say, I am going to propagate and help fulfill this story of a Messiah being born, of us getting a parcel of land which is called Israel or whatever. But they had certain issues that they understood, and that is what brought them together. So if you don't have that commonality, it tends to then cause a lot of problems, like you said. But I want to tell you, and I want to warn you, number one, no amount of preparation will prepare you for marriage. Marriage has got its own surprises. Number two, marriage is a lot of work. And by that, I don't mean hard work, I don't mean stressing work, but there's nothing in life that you just wake up and it's done. There's deliberate effort. So TV and the media, that's why you find out that, I know you know about this. Actor so and so and actress so and so, they are found to be in love, they get a wedding, they are all over each other's arms, and it's the life. You salivate when you look at them. But what happens 2 years down the line? They break up. Why? Because they can't live for the show, for the for the gallery anymore. You understand? It's acting. And who pulls through a 70-year marriage, or like the Queen of England? Actually, if you allow me to digress, there was a document where they were just saying they were rarely seen showing public affection to each other. What do you call it? PAD? PDA, yes. There was a little PDA between the Queen and the husband. But they lasted that long. Because marriage is not about what you do in public and these other fantasies that we've come to create. I'm not saying holding hands is bad. I'm not saying hugging is bad. All I'm saying is that marriage is more and far more than that. Your question, it's a very simple answer. Why would you want to be someone who can't attend to your question? Why? Why do you want to waste your time? And why would you even come and ask and say, what should I do with him? He's not interested. There is no man who is interested in a woman who will not answer any question. Even if you ask him, why are you wearing black socks? He will answer. Amen. If he's not answering, he's not interested in you. If there's anything exciting to a man, is when a woman asks you about our future. Any man will be excited to answer that question. So one of the clearest signs, my sister, very clear, don't even waste your time. If he can't answer your question, wait till when you're courting. Because the excitement is at its highest. Do you understand what I mean? And the future is always brighter. And he can't answer your question at that point in time. Blessed are you among women, that the signs have come early. And you should just walk. It's simple. It's simple. No man will see a woman that he loves, I repeat, answer the critical questions that will make that woman to be at ease. It's like a lion that is hunting. If it sees a deer that it is after, it will chase it, it will do whatever it can until it has its meal.
Okay, Elder, whilst you were answering your question, there's a question that came into my mind. There's this Shona saying that says, I mean, according to our culture, Rume risinganyepe harirore. You know that statement, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you are quoting this lady, and then she asks you, do you have money for this? And I want to do that next week, Chichi, you know. And then you wouldn't want to be in a situation where she thinks, this guy is broke. He doesn't have a plan, you know. He doesn't have I mean, you can't really express yourself. I mean, like tell her everything that you're doing. Because she doesn't, she's not really part of the vision as yet. So if you tell her, baby, I don't have money, I'm planning to do this business, what, and then she's, this guy, you know. So, okay, I'm not saying we are supposed to lie, but I'm asking, what do we do on that?
Okay.
Because you're hunting, as you said.
Yeah. I'll answer that lady, then I'll come back to you. All the boxes have been ticked, and they are Christian. Ladies and gentlemen, on a very sober note, that is one of the deadliest trap that has been put out there. Are we together? I will answer you with my earlier introduction to say, Isaac never knew who Rebecca was. But that was the mandate to follow God's bidding. We are called upon to follow what God has said to us. I don't know up to now. I can't comprehend the full extent. I'm an elder. I can explain it. I've seen it in my life. I know how it works. But I don't know why I keep the Sabbath. Suppose there were 1,000 reasons why I'm keeping the Sabbath. I might know 100. I might know 500. I'll tell you this. I don't know the full 1,000 reasons why I keep the Sabbath. But I keep the Sabbath because God told me in His word, it's written clearly, that remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Because God rested on the Sabbath. Full stop. In our Christian walk, there are things that we do that are not necessarily supposed to be logical to us, but that God has demanded. I'll give my example of myself again. It's not technically true, but what I'm trying to say is there could have been, and it is a fact, there are beautiful ladies than my wife. But like I told you, where I met her in an SDA association. Are we together? But there were other ladies. You understand what I mean? But I understood and defined the parameters in which I was supposed to be in. The reason why that becomes a terrible question is because there's someone who's married to an elder, to a pastor, to an Adventist guy who's being beaten, who's being abused. All those things are happening. And there's someone who's also married outside there, and their marriage seems happy. And I think those are the questions we need to ask God. But as far as I'm concerned, for selfish reasons, my sister, it's always good to challenge God by doing what He tells us to do. And if things don't work out, I personally think you have a very good ground to say, God, I've done what you told me to do. You know I loved Jimmy, that whatever church guy. But I did this because you told me I should do this. Now, God, come through for me. This guy, this master guy is beating me. Lights out, day and night. But I did it not because I had to do. That's my take to life. But that there are other Christian guys who are good and whatever, I'm not disputing that. But I know that this is the remnant church, tasked with a message to preach to the world. Right? And you do good to hoover within the same pond. That's how I would politically address that. I see a hand. Now, back to you. Your answer is exactly like her answer. Yeah. In life, you go through life, especially in the dating phase. Don't quote me, but I'm saying it. In the dating phase, you can lie. No, I'm making a plan. I'll come with a bride peg. You understand what I mean? Yes. But remember what we said. You are now courting because you want to marry this one. If you can't be honest with the person you are going to marry, what are you doing? And to you ladies, if this guy you discover he was lying to you, there is a fundamental problem. However, I hear you, what you are trying to say. We have ego. We were created, a normal man was created not to be vulnerable. A normal man was created to provide. A normal man is supposed to shield the wife. It stresses any normal man to be in a position where he can't provide. That I understand. And you ladies, that you should also understand and appreciate. Right? However, you need a helper meet for you. Right? And what that means is that this, in life, don't be vulnerable to everyone. Good evening, church. Yes, you see me. I don't have money for food to feed my family. That's not okay. You understand what I mean? But I'm saying you allowed one person to be vulnerable to, and that is your wife. And if you are courting, this is the person you can be brutally honest to about things. You know what? My mother is not feeling well. I didn't sleep last night. At our house, my father was retrenched. We don't have food as we speak. I just told Peter, no, don't worry about me. I'll be fine, but I just thought you should know. Because if you are going to form a partnership, honesty is the currency that needs to be traded. So I hear where you are coming from, but I think if this is going to be the person you intend to, then you need to be as vulnerable. Third or second point, if you are vulnerable to that person and they fly away, hallelujah, that is your sign. You are good to go. They were not meant for you. There is nothing that ties a couple that cares about each other than the brutal truth. What kind of a good woman hears that your father is sick and you didn't have a meal last night and they ran away from you? And you still think that, no, they left me because I was too... No. So there comes a point in time. That's why we call it maturity. When you mature, you are supposed to be vulnerable, not to everyone, but to this person whom you are going to spend your life with. And say, you know what? I can't make it. I don't have money for combi to get into town. I don't have I don't have this. I know you want that, but... And it also helps you to gauge how materialistic she is so that you avoid future problems.
Yeah, that's another point for another day, talking about materials. I am going to be taking 3 last questions, Benny questions. 3 last questions. Okay, I'll start with Simba and then come to...
So for me, it's more of a comment. Number one, there is what we call preference, and there is a principle. For us to be safe as youth, from my personal experience, I realized that don't compromise the principle, especially the one that God set for us. Preference, make sure it doesn't crush the principle. Then the other comment that I wanted to say, just from what he just said, it has to do with vulnerability. For ladies, please understand that if a guy is vulnerable to you, don't use it against him. It will crush him. If a man decides to be vulnerable to you, try by all means to handle it in a very wise way. The moment you use it against him, 5 years down the line or whatever time frame, it's going to crush him and he's going to keep things from you. So it's one of the things that I also experienced at some point in time. So those are my comments.
Thank you. My question is on, at the moment, I've realized most of us young people, we are caught up in the rat race of life, that is trying to secure material things, or I don't know, maybe it's media that is driving us towards that that idea of living life, whereby when I finished my A levels, for example, about my life. When I finished my A levels, next thing was I need to go to university, right? And university, I need good grades in order to secure a good job when I'm done with university. When I started university, I'm chasing degrees, I'm chasing masters. After securing that, next thing is I need to get a good job. I need to get into an entrepreneurial pathway. I need to, start my own things and become someone big in society. I need to travel, go places, and all that. And experiencing all this, I've realized that a certain part of my life is left not properly addressed. That is to the part that has to focus on relationships and how my character is developed in line with relationships with courtship. How then how can you best advise us young people? Because there's so much going on at the moment about just self-love, self-development. You don't need the other person. Just focus on yourself. And the scriptures say that it is not good for a man to be alone. For how long can we stay in the state where we are just pursuing our goals, pursuing our, the visions and stuff like that? Yes, the money is needed for one to be in a stable relationship, because we just don't eat love. We need money to do stuff, to travel together and go on dates and it. So at what stage can one say, let me pause this whole thing of self-realization and trying to be the next big thing? At what stage can we say, okay, Greg, this is the time when you now need to consider proper, like really investing in someone you need to be with in life? That's my question.
Right, so my question is almost similar to what she asked, but a bit different in this sense. What if, like you said, when we're about to marry, we're supposed to pray more? I'm praying, and the man that I'm shown is someone who can be described as you can never. For instance, the case with Hosea and Gomer, God says to Hosea, marry Gomer. The worst case scenario. And like you said, when you marry, you're not marrying for yourself. There are parents who tell you, we can never accept this guy. How do you handle such a situation? Because, okay, you can't get married without your parents' blessings. They are needed. And to your parents, that man is a no. And from your prayers, God is saying it's a yes. How do you handle such a situation?
Thank you very much for the exciting questions. The Bible, when it says you reap what you sow, it really meant it. If you concentrate on a career, you will reap a good career and terrible relationships. If you chase after money, you'll make a lot of money, but you'll be very miserable. I am yet to find a testimony, myself included. I married late-ish because of chasing a career. But I'm yet to meet a guy, a man especially, I'm talking to the boys here, who will say, or who has been at a place where they hit big things in life, apologies, without having a wife. I might be wrong, but there's this angle that women bring in this order. that they bring that is required. So there are certain goals that you need to set for yourself. To say, once I get here, I need to marry. Thereafter, I can continue while I've done this. But I'll tell you, the changes you discover once you have, especially if it's done correctly, you will never regret it. You will actually regret why you had to do it very late. You see? So there's a certain dimension, a certain orderliness. That's why God himself said, it is not good that a man should be by himself. And if you ask me, that's the reason why, of all the work that the devil is in overdrive about, it's attacking marriages. Because once the marriage institution achieves what it was meant for, it's unstoppable. And like I said, we have imported a culture that is not ours, where society is trying to teach us that there are certain things that matter more than other things. So you realize that, yeah, whatever we are doing, a career is important, stable income is okay, but you need to do certain things which you know that maybe you can do by yourself better. But there are certain things that you can do together with a partner. Then that's how I can prescribe when is the time to do what you have to do. So I think that would be my advice, to say we are now influenced by things and not by principles. I liked what he said, to say there are preferences and there are principles. And one of the things I must hasten to say is that the modern society we are living in is trying to downplay marriage. I know a lot of young people, some of whom are here, who are scared of marriage because there's a seed that has been planted that this is a monstrous institution. And this seed, unfortunately, it's not fictitious. You guys have seen marriages that are not working. A lot of them, very good. And it is the doing, it is, so I'm not trying to push you into an institution so that you try and make it work, or which is a failure. No. All I'm trying to say is that the choice is in our hands to make our marriages work. And it starts, you guys have a good legroom in the sense that you still have courtship. And these programs like this, that's another thing I wanted to say, that the safest recipe for disaster is for you and your person to get a contract, start courting, and they are always in hiding. Those of you who are honest, you will hear elders asking you, my brother, where is your girlfriend? We've never seen him. He says, no, I have no one. And the next thing you bring, what do you call them, bands, for us to announce. Okay. It is always good to have a mentor. It is always good to bounce off ideas, like what you are doing now, to say, what do you think about this? Well, you have someone senior, because at this time, you are thinking more, not with your head, but with other things on you. The fancy, the emotions, blood is rushing. There are a lot of things that happen with your age. And your decision making is not straight. But imagine just going through, say, no, to introduce your person properly. This is my person. I intend to get to marry them. And if you get an honest elder, say, no, I once saw her in a club. Don't ask the elder what he was doing in a club. Or I know her from such a place or whatever. But we have this fear that the way I love this person, if I show him or her to the elders or the elderly women, and they say no, I can't risk that. But it's always good to have that kind of viewpoint and input, as it were. And I think that is very important. The other thing that I wanted to say on the culture part, we can't go back to it. But our elders were clever than us when they would say, Rora naiwe matongo, they would know each other within a certain community. And I don't know, in this global, virtual technologically driven world what matongo means, but define it for yourself. The English people say, better the devil that you know, right? So I think we need to define what matongo is in a global village, in a virtual reality kind of space. What is matongo? And it's always good to be in that kind of quadrant where you look for relationships that work. Up to your question, there's a likelihood that the devil can hear your prayers.
What if it's a prayer that he doesn't hear?
That's why I used the example. I said there's a likelihood that the devil can hear your prayers. That's number one. And I know you all know what I mean by that. Point number 2, chapter of the day yesterday. I don't know how many of you read it. It was quite interesting. And I will repeat it. David goes to a place called Keilah. How many of you read it yesterday? Anyway, he went to a place called Keilah. Saul is hunting him. He goes to defend the Philistines. He goes and celebrates in a city called Keilah. The Keilites are the people he had helped, right? And as we were doing family worship, it caught my attention. Then the message goes to Saul. David is in the city called Keilah. The message also goes to David. Saul is coming after you. I want you to hear this illustration very clearly. David says, he's afraid. He says to Abiathar, give me the ephod. He talks to God one-on-one. God, I'm in a straight place here. Tripartite. I have heard that Saul is coming. God, please confirm. Please go and read yesterday's chapter of the day. It must be 1 Samuel chapter 23. Go and read it, this story. So, my sister, David says to God, God himself, is Saul coming? Guess what God answered? Saul is what? Is coming. I'm not there, but I'm just picturing it in my mind. I think David is scratching his chin and says, okay, I think I didn't ask God properly. Right? David goes back to God and says, God, if Saul is coming, when he comes and besieges the city or goes encompasses the city, will the Keilites surrender me to Saul? What did God say? He said, yes, they will. End of story. What did David do? The next verse, I was saying this to my kids and my wife. I said, you see, this is what, it challenged me yesterday. David, I don't know, I think it was in the middle of the night, whatever time, he marched out of the city and went away. God never said to him, go out. Why? Because God, in this particular case, and in our lives, leaves room for common sense. And this is one of the most missing ingredients when we are quoting one another. Common sense. Is Saul coming? Yes, he's coming. Will this guy surrender me? Yes. What does David do? He moves out of the city. Common sense. So, God, you already know this guy. And I like your admission. You know already this guy is a non-starter. Why are you praying in the first place? And not only that, if it so happens by hook or crook or by whatever device that you are shown him kuhope or whatever happens or whatever, it means he's not the one, because your common sense is telling you. I'll give you. I want to take it further. There you are. You are walking in Marine. There you see a boy, handsome boy, with a car and whatever. He claps his mother. You go home, you pray, and you say, God, show me a man. And for some, I don't know how you are shown men in your dreams or in your prayers or how they are answered. You see this man. And can you honestly think God gave you that man? I am repeating this emotionally now. We have a tendency of leaving common sense behind the door for some whatever reason. And we pray. And as boys, you are given the most notorious loose woman in the neighborhood, and you think that God gave it to me. I'm like Hosea and Gomer. But you know, Hosea is enough in the biblical narrative. It started and ended with him. There's no other Gomer that is going to come for you, because we're not rewriting the Bible. Revelation is the last book, and let it be known, saints, Revelation is the last book. There's no chapter again about Gomer. So these are things that you know up front. You are in love. I hope they will not sue me. You are in love with this famous boy group in the Adventist church. They sing all over, and you know this boy in this particular group has got a girlfriend wherever he sings. You pray, and for some funny reason, you see his face and his body, and you think that he's the one. God gave it to you. There's no way. The same God who has made it known to you that he is a womanizer is the same God that expects you to use your common sense to walk away. So our time is up, but I hope that our conversations have been very useful. And I encourage all of us to rely on God, to use our common sense, to do the needful. The questions are not, and I must admit, I don't envy you. The influences that are surrounding you are quite difficult, and I pray that the Lord guides you and gives you strength and wisdom especially. You need more wisdom to navigate these challenges that you are facing. And that's why they've aptly called it the Mjolo pandemic. A lot of things are happening, and I'm happy that I'm not your age, but these are realities of life. But I hope that the Lord will give you strength and common sense, and just to analyze what's happening around you. And let's do things as a parting shot. Let's do things at the right time. During courtship, let's court. When we get married, we'll do the other stuff. You don't buy love. A person does not change, they become worse. So don't ever hope. Second thing, you are not his mother or his parent. So don't think that they'll change because you've just married them. If a woman says to you, if a boy says to you, you know, I like to come to your church, but let's get married and I'll come. Forget it. Are we together? He should do it now. Are we together? So may the Lord richly bless you. Is it okay if I pray for you?
Yes, you can close the chapter. Thank you so much for this time, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming through. We do hope we're going to find you next week when we host another program. So yes, Elder, you can proceed and pray.
Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, we thank you this wonderful evening. We thank you for the time we've had with the young people. Our Father, we pray that may you guide them as they are making and at the threshold of making the most important decisions in their life. Our Father, we pray that may you guide them, give them wisdom. May they not fall into ditches, but may you help them to find partners that will make their journey heavenward easier. May you make them filter the influences of this crazy society that we are in. We are indeed in Babylon, and we ask that the wine and the influences that surround us in this day and age.
Sizophepha kanjani kulezi ziphepho? Sizophola kanjani kula manxeba abhibhidlayo? Nguwe Nkosi simakade isiphephelo sethu. Wena ulidwalela yethu. Sizwe Nkosi usisize. Sizwe Nkosi usisize.
The winds and the waves shall obey my will. Peace, 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 peace. Whether the rock of the storm
Yes, you should just claim peace, peace, peace still. You better trust and obey. Just believe God is in control. Yes, sir. He says the peace, 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 peace still.
Kosi sengathi ungavuka usisindise thina ngokumangu wena somandla ona kukusisiza uyalalela umoya thulanya thulanya uyalalela umoya thulanya uthina
somandla kayihambeki indlela imnyama okomgodo ngolamkhawulo awukufa khona kufihliza santando komuntu imitsha yabhuqe ibhuquza santando phezu kwethu inkengane layo idla ubhethu iminyaka iselemana amadolonki intolo amandla kithi du onkosi soba yini thina soba yini thina sizosila kanjani kulezi zicomazi sizophepha kanjani na kula malanga sizophola kanjani kula manxeba abhibhidla sisize Nkosi sisize Nkosi through it all yes the winds Jesus just says peace understand his word and true oh yes he says peace peace chula utinya